Yo, so we got the economy crashing, which we all knew.
Every single metric is saying that.
We all knew the economy was going to crash. Let's be totally honest. I mean, we got $500,000 townhouses up north, or at least where I'm at. I'm not even up north. I'm in the middle of the country, so I'm in the Pacific area or in the South. I'm in the DMV. Some people say it's the South, but we got 500,000 townhouses, $1 million townhouses. Shit's done gone to shite.
Inflation is finally dropping.
Inflation is slowing and outperforming expectations.
Surprise drop in inflation.
Gas is getting cheaper, so is electricity, car insurance, and even hotels. So then, why is everything still so f***ing expensive?
You know what I really love? I love the inflation.
Housing, food, childcare, transportation.
Because inflation was never designed to tell you whether you can now start affording your life. In fact, what we have is a whole system built so prices are always guaranteed to go up. But you're
Bro, $7 burger at Wendy's for a Dave's single is crazy work. I remember you used to get like a Dave's triple for like a Dave's triple used to be like $7, bro. I swear, when I was like 9 years old, a Dave's triple would the whole combo would run you around $8. Now the burger itself is probably $12, $13. It hasn't even been 20 years. What happened to this country?
used to that. You always have been paying more. So beyond that, why
We all
should you
know what
care?
happened.
Well, where it gets interesting for you is that there's
The
only one
oligarchs,
way
man.
prices ever actually come back down. The only version where your groceries get cheaper is the one where you don't even have a job to pay for them. So the people who built this economy made sure that you can't bring prices down without holding you hostage.
You will own
But where
nothing
it gets
and be
interesting is that once prices can only ever go up, raising them becomes the perfect crime. Because once a few companies figured out this playbook, they realized that they could keep pushing prices way past their own costs and let you blame the economy for it. And it's the perfect
Bro, COVID was like the pandemic was like the Pandora's box for these business people, these corporations, bro. When they figured out that they could get away with $6 cereal and $8 eggs, they never looked back. Or like $5 milk, $6 milk. You go get breakfast. Just go get breakfast. Just some cereal, some eggs, some bacon, s- um, shit, some fruit. You already at 20 something dollars. And that's not even counting dinner for the week and lunch for the week. Yeah, man.
crime because even if they get caught, all they need to do is pay a fine that's a fraction of their profits and the prices stay exactly where they are. So I spend weeks going through court filings, earning calls, and Federal Reserve papers to break this down for you in a way that's actually easy to understand. And once you see it, you'll notice that they're not even hiding what they're doing. But by the end, I'll tell you the one thing that will never inflate in value. So let's start simple by fundamentally changing how you view inflation. First, so we're on the same page, how does inflation get measured? Every month, the government checks the price on thousands of specific things from milk, gas, rent, or even a haircut. Then they publish how much that whole list has moved month to month. And that inflation number has actually been falling. Inflation reached its highest in 40 years at 9% back in 2022. And just last month, it came in at 3.5%. But I can't be the only one who thinks that that number's a lie. Nothing seems to be getting cheaper, so I figured it was just some clever financial engineering, and they're quietly swapping cheaper stuff to keep that number looking good. But then that also doesn't really make sense because those numbers get picked apart by thousands of economists and journalists way smarter than I am, and every one of them would love to be the guy that catches it. So the number is real, but the only conclusion I arrive to is that it's just not measuring what you think is measuring. Because when someone says inflation, it's easy to just assume price equals up. But really, the best way to think of it is like your car. Inflation is the speedometer, like miles per hour, and your prices are the odometer, or how many total miles the car has run. That at least helped me understand that they're two completely different numbers. So when the inflation rate drops from 9% to 3.5, that just means that the car started slowing down. But an important distinction here is that slowing down doesn't mean that you started going in reverse. Well,
Yeah, inflation is basically like at least the inflation predicament that we're in right now is like, imagine a big tsunami was coming, but it's so far out, or like it's pretty far out that like you're still good. Like it's weeks away, but like you can see the waves. The birds are starting to fly away. You know what I'm saying? The squirrels are hiding. They're starting to go hide. The bears are ducking off, and then the ocean by the beach, it just feels a little different. That's what the economy's like right now. That's like the way I could make sense of it.
I mean, egg prices started crashing back down this year, almost down to 21%. So is it not like your car going in reverse? Well, if you zoom out, they're still 73% more expensive than they were in 2020. So in general, certain items might go down and up, but why things continue to get more expensive is because nobody is even trying to get that number to zero. Because the official inflation target, the thing that every Fed or central bank on earth aims at, is set at 2% a year.
2%.
2% inflation target.
2% target.
Wait, what? So that's why prices are always guaranteed to go up then? Why? Well, it's because when somebody tried to push those prices back down, what it cost this country is something nobody ever wants to try again. Because in 1979, inflation wasn't just 3%, but 13, and by March of 1980, it was almost close to hitting 15. And the guy that they put in charge of fixing
The wildest part is this country never had this problem when it was a gold backed currency, and then they switched to a silver backed currency, and then you had nefarious people get together and they made policies and whatnot to make it so the dollar wasn't backed by gold and things like that. So then they take power away from the people, because if it's backed by gold, it's not a government control. The government can't control the amount of the money. The people control the amount of the money by the economy itself, by how affluent the economy is. But no, they took that away from the people and they gave us these government tokens. It literally says government token on there, and they went and printed out sheet swads of it to go get monkeys high on powder.
was Paul Volcker, former chair of the Federal Reserve. So to address this inflation, he took interest rates from 11% all the way up to 20. So mortgages went over 18, and if you wanted a car loan, you were now looking at a 21% loan. And it worked exactly how he wanted, which is to say it was a disaster. Two recessions came back to back, and unemployment hit 10.8%, the worst since the Great Depression. And people started expressing hate for him in a way that's kind of hard to imagine now. Farmers drove their tractors to Washington and blockaded the Federal Reserve. Car dealers sitting on a bunch of unsold cars mailed him coffins stuffed with the car keys. And home builders stuck postage stamps on bricks and pieces of 2x4s and mailed those to the Fed. Like, bro, we used to be a proper country, but thing is, he didn't care. And what's crazy is that eventually he won. Kind of. Inflation did go back down from 15 to around 3, and it then stayed under 2.
Bro, inflation was at 15%, dog. Bro, wow. This is honestly crazy, especially with this whole war in Iran stuff going on. The corruption with our politicians and the rich people that run this government. It's kind of eerie because you have all these rich people that are like running to AI. They're running the artificial intelligence, saying it's the new God and this, that, and the third, right? Treating it like it's Jesus, and I don't believe in none of that crap. I'm not even religious, right? But I say that to say this. AI, eerily enough, is the only thing that could save this economy. And it's also the same thing that could tear it apart. Like, it's funny enough. It's the sharpest double-edged sword we've come across in recent times.
1986. But What didn't go down was the price. Every price that was inflated from the 70s just stayed exactly where it was. So the most brutal, most celebrated win over inflation in American history
Pac-Man
put
cereal,
10 million
bro.
people out of work and not one price went back. It's exactly why no one has done this again, leading them to focus on one thing. Not whether prices come back down, but just how fast they should go up. Leading me back to the 2% I told you to hold on to. Because 2% does sound like nothing until you really think about it. Since the year 2000, a dollar lost about half its buying power. So today it buys you roughly around 51 cents of what it used to back then. But why 2%? Now, I assumed it was because a room full of geek economists researched and came up with the best model to arrive at that 2%, but no, it was a guy on TV on the completely other side of the globe. I can't believe it was also on this date, but on April 1st of 1988, New Zealand's finance minister went on television, and when the interviewer asked if he was happy with inflation coming down to about 10%, he said,
No, I'm looking for zero inflation or maybe 0 to 1%.
and after he said that, it created a whole frenzy because even though he said this completely off the cuff, and he definitely didn't even intend to, but everyone from its own central bank as well as everybody watching at home was caught off guard because now the central bank was stuck with a number that nobody there actually picked, and they now had to go build a real target around this 0 to 1%. So to make it more feasible, they landed on 0 to 2%. And the finance minister also agreed because it rhymed. 0 to 2 by 1992. And I wish this was April Fool's, but this is actually what happened. And just like that, that number went global. Every major central bank has copied it since then, and the Federal Reserve has made it official American policy in 2012.
The committee judges that inflation at the rate of 2% is most consistent over the longer run with our statutory mandate.
So when the number that your entire life is priced around came from a guy just making up as he goes, what I still couldn't figure out was how the hell does something so random actually end up holding up for almost 40 years?
Boomers, bro. Boomers. That's why. The hippies, bro. Oh my gosh.
Which brings me back to why I wasn't getting any answers looking at inflation graphs. Because inflation was never meant to describe reality, it was meant to change what you expect. And if everybody believes prices only go up a little, everyone prices it like it. And that belief is quietly what makes everything true. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this whole thing pretty much runs on you believing it. And for the last few decades, you did because you barely ever really felt it. But recently in 2020, inflation hit 9%. And once you watch your grocery bill jump 30% in 40 years, you stop believing that message. And like I said, that's what it runs on. Because now everyone expects prices to rise more than double what that 2% target is supposed to be. So businesses start raising prices before their own costs start moving. Workers start asking for more to cover those rising expenses. And then just like that, the expectation turns itself into the thing that actually happens. So I already told you why you can't just slow down inflation, because that means 10 million people go out of work and
the one wild part about what he's stating right now, we're already in that situation. You know how many videos you come across on the internet where you have somebody saying they want to work a second job and they're already working overtime at the one job they're already at. So that means they're working overtime for more than 50 hours a week on one job, and they have to get another job because prices are too high. You have, they literally stop. We live in a society in the country where the boomers literally, they bought up all the land, right? They bought up all the houses, and they didn't, how do I say this in the most subtle way? They didn't go on. They didn't pass on, okay? So by not passing on, they never passed on none of these assets. You feel me? None of this land, none of these houses, or the bank never got the chance to get these things back because they're still here, right? So they did that, and then they passed laws and legislations to make the houses and all these type stuff go up in price, right? They shot up in price, right? And then for the young people, this is what they're gonna do for us young people, right? They're building these apartments, and they're gonna stack young people on top of each other like we're living in like Bangkok or some shit, right? That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna stack young people on top of young people inside these weird apartments that all look the same. They have the same tables, they have the same kitchen layout, the same gray hardwood floors. And then on top of that, they're gonna charge you $2,500. Well, you know, like in the 70s or 60s or some shit, people used to pay rent for like $70, bro. They used to get like what you would consider a studio apartment now. You was able to get that for around $100 a month in some places in America. This is what we living through right now. Is the wool's been pulled over so many people's eyes. It's like it's actually shocking. It's shocking. That's not no 60-year jump. What happened with these people that wrote these laws and legislations? The greed of the old people that run this country, it reaches no limits. I'm trying to tell y'all. They want to be Lex Luthor in real life. They want to obtain. Let me chill though. That's a whole nother tangent.
This still won't come back down. But what about being even more aggro and reversing it altogether as in deflation? Because if that happens, you stop buying. Because why buy today what's going to be cheaper next month? And that's exactly how the snowball forms for everyone else, where the businesses stop selling and because of that, they start firing. But that's not even the part that would get you. Because even when your paycheck fails, what you already owe doesn't give a shit. This includes your rent, your car payment, or whatever you own on your credit statement. And those numbers are already locked in, so you're gonna be earning way less.
This just reminded me, I got into like a little debate with one of my friends, right? And we were talking about what's smarter, getting the car from the dealership or just buying your car outright. And at the end of it, I think we came to the conclusion, well, at least I came to the conclusion it's a preference thing, it's to each its own. But in my preference, the way the economy's set up right now, I just would rather, I just think it's smarter to buy your car outright. I don't care if it's a bucket, right? I couldn't care less if it's a lemon squeeze. You buy the car outright because at the end of the month when rent comes and insurance comes and you got to restock on groceries, you don't have to pay an extra bill. Extra is not good. There's endless ways to like raise your credit. But if you want to raise your credit, getting the car from the dealership, I guess it would be a great way to raise your credit. So it's like we living in just times, man. Weird times.
Every year while owing the exact same amount. And that's exactly what happened in Japan. Their prices fell about 4% total over the last 14 years, and they've called this the lost decades. The debt got heavier, the jobs disappeared, and a whole generation grew up with almost no chance of ever earning more. And that's the trap. Your paycheck and that price tag are now tied to the same thing, so nobody can pull down one without dragging the other one with it. And all they can really do is to keep telling you the story and hope that you'll still believe it. Which got me thinking, because if the whole game is a story about what you'll put up with, then somebody out there is getting very rich learning exactly how much that is. And what I found following the money is a handful of companies who've quietly figured out exactly how to use it. And the truth is, that same incentive problem that we just talked about also exists in AI. The companies that sell you the tokens make more money the more you burn, whether or not it's actually working or paying for itself. That's exactly where today's sponsor, Zapier, comes in. Most AI workflows don't direction. What I was expecting was some sort of weird conspiracy. But what I found is the same three things showing up in plain sight over and over in industry after industry. So the question becomes, how do they keep getting away with it?
Because the people at the top don't hold them accountable. What we talking about? How they keep getting away with it? We got president after president. They just get tapped on the pocket, rubbed on the shoulder, and say, take your wife out on a nice vacation. Make sure the kids graduate college and take care of little Jimmy. Why don't you, right? That's why, okay?
So here's the first thing that they all had in common, is that every single one of them had some sort of shock to point at. Because if you want to raise the price, the last thing you want is people noticing that you did it, so the perfect cover becomes some sort of shock. And the cleanest example of this is a chicken wing restaurant. Because during the pandemic, you and every fat stuck at home started ordering wings. I mean, who doesn't love wings? And that demand led to a chicken shortage where wholesale wing prices shot up about 125% in a single year. So Rick Ross's favorite restaurant, Wingstop, raised their prices and nobody complained.
And the worst part about it is they're probably still getting the wings from the same wholesaler at a discounted margin, if not the same margin, okay? Sometimes these companies are so wicked, they get it at the same margin and still upcharge it on you just to knock you across the head. You know what I'm saying? Just to get a good bozo.
And your fat ass wanted to order wings. But as these things go, eventually the chickens had enough time to make more chickens and wing cost eventually came back down. But Wingstop's prices didn't move at all because they knew that they had their shock. Because as long as the customer can point to things like the economy and inflation, they don't point fingers at you.
And the wing
once
is
you
not gonna get
find
no
out
better.
what people pay during these shocks, the gap between what it costs you and what you can charge stops being about the crisis, but profit. They actually have a name for this where they use shocks as an excuse to keep raising prices, and it's called excuseflation. Yeah, they're really good at naming these sort of things, but it's really genius. One, because the shock or the excuse is always real, right? Like you can't dispute the pandemic, war, and too many fat continue to eat wings. And two, you can never see where the real part ends and the decision begins. So it's genius, but eventually every excuse also becomes tiring to others around you. Like you're fat saying this is the last order of wings at midnight. But again, right, a shock only works until people realize that it's ran its course. So now something else is needed to keep prices up. And here's the part where I expected to start finding some leaked emails or some internal memos, but I didn't have to look for any of that because they said it out loud in the one place where companies can't lie. Because by early 2024, Coca-Cola has raised prices 13%, but then ended up selling more product than the year before. And by their own numbers, some of that was inflation, but
This is even grimier. Raising the price of soda is diabolical. Why on earth would soda have to raise up? Is soda... Coca-Cola is made from some of the most cheapest materials on planet Earth for food. Okay? For drinks and beverages. To make a good beverage, you know, beverages, it takes beverages are actually kind of expensive, you feel me? Cause you gotta get like 5 lemons. This is the most basic drink of drinks. You gotta get at least 5 lemons to make a good pitch of lemonade. You feel me? A lot goes into a little for drinks and juice, wines, liquors, all of that type stuff. But for soda, bro, you just need a little bit of syrup and a lot of sugar, bro, and some fizzy water and the little bit of water at that. You feel me? Cause it's fizzed up. It's basically filled up with air. So it's a dirt cheap drink. And even in the Great Depression, there's really no reason for soda to raise up in price. I'll be honest with you. That's why we still have dollar liters in 2026. You noticed that?
than half was just them deciding to charge more. And in their annual investors report, they told their investors exactly that. And once they did so, it got stuck. Because a public company doesn't get judged on whether prices are fair, it gets judged against its own last quarter. So even once the shock ends, and let's say the CEO genuinely wants to bring you back that old price, he can't. Because dropping it means walking into the next earnings call and explaining why he made less than last quarter. And let's be real, he would be a bad CEO if you can raise 13% and people still start buying even more of it. But here's the thing about glorious corporate America. Because if we truly did practice this capitalism, and if every other company is stuck holding their prices higher and higher, you would think that this is like the biggest opening that a competitor has ever had. And what a perfect opportunity to undercut all of them and take the whole market. But nobody has, okay, well, except Arizona Tea, but let's not count them for the story. But no, it's not like nobody has. It's just more so nobody
Arizona's
wants
real.
to more like.
And Arizona's proof that most of these companies had no reason to do this. Cheese don't went up in price. Butter don't went up in price. Like we got new cows or something that make golden milk. They make golden milk and golden cheese I never knew about. Um, we got new chickens. You know, these chickens they lay golden eggs.
Nobody really can. Four chains control roughly 2/3 of the entire grocery market, up from about 42% back in the 2000s. So even though the glorious American consumerism looks like infinite choice, even if you start boycotting a brand and buying the other one, this usually just means that you're moving money between the same few pockets. And when there's only 3 or 4 of you left, you don't even need to compete with your competitors because there's nowhere for you to go. Which of course brings me back to these eggs, because there's a number that you've never heard of that decides exactly what eggs cost in this entire country. Look, I didn't know this, but it's published every day by a private company called Urner Berry, and your grocery store's egg contracts are tied to whatever number they post. But here's the catch. The number goes up based on how much the big egg producers are bidding to buy eggs from each other. Which means that if the same producers secretly decide together to push that number up, those same people will get paid more when the prices go up. And 3 weeks ago, the Justice
for giant $9 for Giant brand eggs, bro. Giant is a grocery store up here in the northeastern part of the country or Pacific area or something like that. Bro, you're telling me that the Giant brand, it's like basically Walmart brand. It's the store grocery brand version of the eggs, bro. Like and they're not good quality eggs, bro. They're low quality eggs, bro. And you're telling me that those eggs are $9? I haven't even looked at. Damn. That's crazy.
Department in 17 states sued the 3 biggest egg producers in America for doing exactly what you'd expect. Flooding it with fake bids nobody expected to win and to make the number think eggs were scarcer than they were. And one of the CEOs allegedly emailed the other 2 telling them to submit strong bids early and often, and now they denied all of this and settled without admitting anything. But remember when I told you that egg prices finally crashed back down? The government's own complaint says that they dropped right after these guys found out that they were being investigated. The punishment was $3.3 million, which for the biggest one is about 1/10% of what it actually ended up making that year. And oh, this is probably not important, but a jury already found these same producers liable for fixing egg prices once before back in 2023. And to be completely real, honestly, this wouldn't be so bad if it was just a few bad eggs in the egg.
At this point, I think we just need to start actioning these big corporations out. We need to start going back to farmers, going back to having our own chicken coops, bruh. We gotta go back to driving 20 miles out to go see that farmer that got a lot of cows, a lot of chickens. They got cheese and butters and all that good stuff. Because we can't do this no more. At least I can't do it no more, man. I'm really about to start doing that because this is diabolical. Diabolical.
This, I'm sorry, but the whole point is that it's happening everywhere now. Like the computer that you're watching me on right now, because RAM prices jumped as much as 110% in one quarter this year, and everybody blamed AI, which is fair because data centers are eating up about 20% of the world's memory, but pretty much only 3 companies on Earth make this RAM or memory that you want to call it, and they're making bank. Because just in that same month as the egg investigation, a federal lawsuit accused all 3 of coordinating to choke supply and blame AI for it. They all denied it, of course, except all 3 already pleaded guilty for doing exactly what's being alleged all the way back in the 2000s. And so it became...
Yeah, we living in the wildest times, bro. It's the wild, wild west again, once again in business. These rich people, they figured out a way, a loophole of some sort to squeeze as much money as possible out of the people, the regular average people, because they will say these things about, oh, it's this price, it's just that price, while they are still getting the components. They're the ones making the components. They cut deals with the people that get the minerals and whatnot, so they're getting it for a good number, okay? And they're going to sell whatever they sell for the most marked up, a sky high price they could think of. And then they're gonna drink and laugh together and just have fun like it's a Saturday night with the guys or some shit.
Pretty clear to me and should for you that the reason everything keeps getting more expensive goes way past inflation. And when there's always another shock coming, another shareholder demanding more profit, and more monopolies making it so that you have nowhere to go, there is no waiting for price drops. And you just have to accept that this is just what things cost now. But then the question becomes, does accepting the prices mean accepting there's nothing you can do? Well, here's the thing. Even as things have gotten more expensive, nobody has actually stopped spending. It's why every economist now keeps calling you the resilient consumer, and they're not wrong, because some way, somehow, people keep finding ways to pay it rather than not. But what I found is that one of those is the reason that nothing ever changes, but the other is the only hope that's ever forced the price back down in modern America. So let's start with how are people finding ways to pay? Well, one obvious is by earning more. But like I showed you earlier, your raise gets priced in before it even hits your account. So businesses are already raising ahead of their own costs. And as a business owner myself, labor is one of the first things that businesses start pricing. It's exactly why, adjusted for inflation, the average worker hasn't gotten a real raise in the last 5 years. But again, people didn't just stop buying. They just started paying with money that they don't have. Why do you think that credit card debt is now sitting at a record 1.2?
Yeah, credit card debts at a sky high. Foreclosures are on a sky high. People are getting kicked out of their houses at a very high rate. Cars getting towed back like repo is at sky high. So like I said earlier in the video, the tsunami. You just see it out there in the water. You see the waves rippling. The beach just feel a little different, man.
Trillion dollars, and about 13% of those balances are at least 90 days late, which is the level that we haven't even seen since the 2008 crisis. And for some of you watching, you might assume that that's just people being reckless with money, and there's definitely some truth to that. People do buy some dumb shit, like using buy now, pay later to buy a pair of sneakers you can't afford, or door dashing burritos in 4 payments. But if you look closer at what they're actually starting to finance that with, it becomes a little scary. When Klarna went public last year, their own chief commercial officer said exactly where they were headed next, which was expanding into, quote, everyday spending categories. So a polite way of saying groceries, because 29% of the people using these apps are now buying food with them, and 2 years ago that was 14%. And now more than half of them are saying that they couldn't make ends meet without it. And another thing about groceries getting split up into 4 different payments is that the store still gets paid in full the same day. So from where they're sitting, the prices worked even as they keep pushing it up, and they never find out or really give a shit whether you could afford it or not. Which means that with the rising prices, what some are doing is just refusing to spend on things that have become more expensive. But again, that
we gotta start shopping with farmers again. That's the only way to get through to these people, because when that bottom line drop, the prices will drop. Sadly, we're dealing with the demonic corporate gluttons. But this was a good video from Jen. Y'all go fuck with that. Subscribe. But I was gonna say I got another video though. It intrigued me, and it's on this topic. I'm gonna bounce it off.
This is a PlayStation 5. It came out in 2020 at $399, and now even though
I haven't seen a Mr. Who's Boss video in a while. He used to make the phone videos and stuff, the reviews and stuff. I used to watch all endless of his phone reviews, knowing I was not gonna go get like half of those phones. Good videos though.
6 years old, it costs $599. Nintendo.
And the wildest part, a piggyback off the video we just watched, bro. We living in such the wildest times ever that your friend will come tell you to buy the PS5 now, okay? Because it's gonna go up in price a year later or 2 years later. What on earth? You've never ever since the dawn of video games coming out, have we ever heard somebody say buy it now because it's gonna go up in price? It's gonna go up and how much it costs. It don't even make sense. Your mom used to literally wait after the stuff dropped because everybody knew it was gonna go down in price. Ring the bells.
A price hike to their Switch 2.
Ring
The
the
Xbox has raised
bells.
its price 3 times since 2025, and the scariest part is not even the extra money, it's what's happening around it. Because at the same time, PlayStation announced it's going to stop shipping physical game discs entirely, Xbox has axed 5 of its big game production studios and fired
You owe
thousands
nothing.
of people in what's being called one of the biggest single layoffs in gaming history, all while Nvidia has started capping how many hours a month you're allowed to play when using their services.
Bro, we can't even own video games, bruh. Like, y'all done made $500,000 townhouses, $1 million townhouses, and you said you can't even own your own video game. You can't own your own movie. I can't own I Am Legend. Just have it. I mean, wow, that's messed up, man. Wow, evil.
Easiest part?
That is
Everything I've just mentioned is linked. This is actually all part of a single chain reaction that's already started in the gaming industry. And I don't see where it stops. To understand what I mean, if we were to take apart this PlayStation 5, inside you would find 16 gigabytes of RAM, or memory, which it needs to be able to run games. A single AI chip from Nvidia, the Blackwell Ultra, requires 288 gigabytes of memory, 18 PlayStation 5's worth of RAM. Now it is a
Bro, I haven't even been on the P5 or Xbox in like a month, bro. I've been playing the Switch 2. The Switch, hold up. My Switch 2 right here. You see this? Bitch. You see this right here, though? This little thing, I gotta give it to it, man. This thing has been way more fun than the Xbox, than the PS5. When GTA 6 comes out, though, I will be on the PS5. But it's only because I could play it so casually. I could literally come home after work, eat dinner, be a little worn out, take a shower and whatnot, you know, and then just plop down, put on some TV, some YouTube or something like that, and I could play the Switch while I'm sitting down. If I really want to, I could plug it up to the TV. You feel what I'm saying? The graphics not the best, but they're good enough. They're good enough, bro. And it's way better than like scrolling on my phone all the time, or going in on Instagram and just looking at memes and whatnot. You know, it's better than that. I feel more fulfilled. But they saying they want to take away the games you own too is pretty wicked.
a type of memory than what's in your PlayStation, but it's made on the same production lines by the same companies. So every gigabyte that goes into this is a gigabyte that can't be made for a PS5. And the problem is when AI companies buy chips for their data centers, they don't just buy one. Chips are sold in racks, each containing 72 of those AI chips. So one rack equals 1,300 PlayStation 5s. Oh dear. And they don't just buy one rack. Racks are purchased in clusters. Last year, Microsoft switched on their first big cluster to help power the growing needs from OpenAI's ChatGPT models. That cluster was 64 racks in one go. 83,000 PlayStation 5s. And here's where it gets truly terrifying. Even that was barely a test run compared to the scale on which these new servers are being set up now. Just a year later, OpenAI is currently building out the Stargate campus that will reportedly hold 100 times the number of racks as that.
And the wildest part is none of this is producing any profit. This is why I say AI could literally cripple this economy to parts of we've never seen before, or it could catapult it and make it heavenly to be here. It's really funny. Look at all this money that's being pumped into this. We should have bullet trains going from east to west coast like it's effortless. Like I should be able to wake up today and say, I want some tacos from LA and be back by the time the Nationals game starts or something. But we can't do that.
Purchase 8.3 million PlayStation 5's worth of memory in one company's one site. That's almost enough PlayStations for every single household in the entire continent of Australia. And so when you factor in that there are also other AI companies, Meta and their even larger Prometheus site, xAI's Colossus, supposedly the world's most powerful data center, Amazon, Google, and every other big tech company who's galloping headfirst into the AI wars, we have reached a point where AI data centers are now estimated to be swallowing up 70% of the world's memory output. 70% is going into building services that we'd barely heard of 5 years ago. And that has left everything else on the planet that needs memory, every phone, every PC, every car, every console, having to now fight over the small and rapidly shrinking pool that's left. Why don't they just make some more memory, you ask? Well, I don't think they want to. See, the entire world's memory supply comes from largely 5 companies. And if we're talking about the specific type of memory used to make RAM, that's only 3 companies: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. And these 3 companies could choose to invest tens of billions into new factories.
And this is why things just keep getting worse in the economy, because from food, even at ice cream, you got these 2, 3, no more than 5 companies will be at the top, and then they will cut deals with some guy in a suit that makes laws for a country, and then they'll cut deals with their friend, and then they'll just screw over the people. It's crazy. It's crazy. And they do it so that they just make more and more money.
Be able to produce more, but that would take 3 to 4 years to build. And if there were to be an AI crash in that time, they'd have spent it all for nothing. And so why take the risk when they're currently raking in cash? These companies are currently lapping up 70 to 80% margins on their memory compared to the historical norm of 30 to 40% because of one simple fact: that their new favorite customers, big tech companies, will pay absolutely anything for it. We are in a very unique situation where, basically for the first time since the dot-com bubble, some of the richest companies on the planet, like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, are not even behaving like businesses. They're spending more money than they're even making from AI because the fear of losing the AI race has actually become bigger than the fear of debt. This is a very precarious situation for the world to be in, and it puts these memory companies in such a powerful position that it feels like they've just decided to forget entirely about the consumer, with Micron actually quietly shutting down its consumer memory brand, Crucial, to focus on these data center business customers. Now, new factories are coming. Elon Musk and Intel are building a giant AI complex in Texas, for example, that will also make some memory, but none of it produces anything meaningful before 2028. Plus, almost all of that new capacity is being built for, you guessed it, the AI customers anyway, because, well, you already know now. So how much more expensive has this memory really become? Well, to give you an idea, within just 3 months at the end of last year, the price of a single 16GB stick of RAM rose almost 300%, according to Tom's Hardware's RAM Price Index. Asha Sharma, CEO of Xbox, has said the price we paid for console storage components was over 2 times as high as we paid last fall. These costs have since doubled again, and as we plan for the 2027 holiday season, we expect another significant increase, taking us over 5 times the prices we paid only 2 years earlier. 5 times! Memory is getting...
It's so funny because earlier in the video, remember earlier, because he cut the dollar in half. That shows you how fast it's getting even worse, because this is with tech now, and this is happening in months. You got the CEO of Xbox, whatever she is, chairman, complaining. You know how much money Microsoft got?
So expensive that, according to a report from TrendForce, on some high-end graphics cards, the memory that's on the card, known as the VRAM, now accounts for up to 80% of the total cost. Let that sink in. The actual clever bit of the graphics card that you should be paying for, the GPU chip that companies like Nvidia spend billions designing, is on some cards now costing less than the basic memory that's soldered around it. Here's where it starts to get problematic. The implications from these higher prices are bigger than they first seem, because when the prices go up, of course, fewer consumers buy. Like if we take PlayStation, in May 2026, just after the price hike, Americans bought fewer PlayStations than they had in any May since the year 2000. That's before the PlayStation 2 had even come to America. Xbox had the worst May in its entire history, and it's much bigger than just PlayStation and Xbox. Any company that makes any type of computing hardware. I was speaking to the director of one of the big Windows handheld companies, the companies that make this kind of stuff, and his words were, man, Windows gaming handhelds and computers are dead now. No company will launch new products if the memory prices continue to rise. It is crazy now. How bad do things need to be for a director of a currently operating business to call their own business dead? Even like Valve, typically the strongman of value gaming, just launched their Steam Machine, a box that's barely as powerful as the 6-year-old PS5, for $1,049. It's not going to be the next Steam Deck. Put it that way.
Bro, paying $1,000 for this is diabolical. $1,000 for a game console? Game consoles used to cost like $200 something, and the gamers, they're not better. And like for $1,000, I would think it is like some Sword Online crap, right? And they're gonna literally put me into the game, and I'm gonna feel like I gotta go kill the Goblin King myself, right? But no, nope. It's just a regular old controller, same old TV, and the game gonna look the same as PS4, or just a little better.
Barely as powerful as the 6-year-old PS5 for $1,049. It's not going to be the next Steam Deck, put it that way. So all of a sudden, the home console, the bastion that for 30 years has been the affordable way to game, the thing your mum could buy you at Christmas, is quietly drifting away from a staple to a luxury purchase. Now, gamers aren't going to stop playing games, right? But are they going to have to start changing where they play them? Very possibly, and that's where things get concerning. If the PlayStation 6, for example, launches at 2.5 times the base price that the PS5 did, $1,000, which sounds like an outrageous prediction, but is actually what the current latest rumors are suggesting, then it's not a crazy thought that far fewer people...
Bro, if a PlayStation 6 costs $1,000, bro, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably still gonna buy the shit, because I'm grown now and I got cash. But I feel bad for the kid that's in 3rd grade and whatnot, and their family got cash and they're able to get that $1,000 PlayStation 6, and they can't, and they still gotta play on the P4 or something like that, or they just now able to get the PlayStation 5. These companies are evil, bro. Damn, homie, you good? That's my cat, bro. Little nigga sneezing.
Buy a PS6, and you might think, okay, I mean, that's fine, I'll just wait, I'll buy it pre-owned. But it's not about just us, the individual. See, the entire console gaming industry relies on momentum. These companies have to sell tens of millions of these consoles right out the gate to prove to developers that their new platform is worth developing for. It means that a new console is basically either all or nothing. You either sell tons of boxes, have developers flooding to your platform to make games for those users, and then even more users buying your console because of those games. The Nintendo Wii is a great example of forward momentum like this, with the console eventually hitting 101 million sales. Or you bottle it at the start. You don't manage to get that in.
Man, the Wii, that first Wii was lightning in a bottle. Wii Sports, that bowling, that boxing, Smash Bros. Man, I remember playing Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 on the Wii. It was legendary. You had to do the Kamehameha with the body gestures. You could real life hold it by holding place to make it get bigger. Dog, that's crazy.
Launch trajectory. Game devs don't want to take the risk, and then pretty much nothing you do is going to save your platform. Like the Wii U, which came just after the Wii, and in its entire lifetime has only hit 13.5 million. So my question is, how on earth are Sony or Xbox going to build any kind of momentum with their next-gen consoles if they're priced at $1,000? If the PS6 launches and only 5 to 8 million people buy one in the first year, whereas 80 million people are currently on PS5s, which platform are developers going to prioritize their games for? Obviously the old one. Sure, they'll make a version that runs at a higher resolution for the latest hardware, but any sensible developer who's gonna have to spend maybe half a decade pouring everything into their next game is going to do everything to make sure that it's PS5 users who are getting an optimal experience, because that's where the money is. So now, there is even less reason to upgrade. And the spiral descends. Because here's the thing, Sony more so than Xbox is a little bit protected in the short term. If no one buys a PS6, then they do still have this giant PS5 install base to sell subscriptions and games to. But the install base of a console is like a melting ice cube. Consoles break, they get sold, they get retired, and players do slowly lose attachment and stop buying games for it across its lifetime. They drift over to PC, phones, or just out of the hobby. Normally, the thing that replenishes this pool of active users is the next-gen console. So if the PS6 ends up too expensive to do that, then the paying population for companies like Sony is going to shrink every year, with nothing refilling it. So, if these companies want to continue to maintain their profits, they have to claw back money from other places. And as far as I can see, there are 4 ways that they could do this. The first lever they can pull is subscriptions. I think these companies will raise the price of subscriptions and will make it feel more essential to pay a monthly fee.
Bro, when they brought PlayStation Plus into the whole gaming thing, it kind of was the big start of ruining gaming, and Xbox Live Gold, having to pay to play online with your friends, was diabolical. I vividly remember playing video games without having to pay for like Gold or any of that crap online too. Like on PSP, bro, you was able to play with your friends all next to each other without having to buy any type of online pass or anything like that. On PSP in 2006.
They experience. I mean, Xbox tried an enormous price increase at the end of last year to its Game Pass, then realized they went a little too far and pulled it back a bit, but it's still more expensive than it was. And Nintendo's already started jacking up online costs 2 months ago in Japan, so who knows how long till that becomes global. Lever 2 is game prices. And we've already been seeing a lot of this before the memory crisis. Like $60 was the default price for a game for 15 years. Then it jumped to $70 in 2020, only to now start another jump to $80, just 5 years after. If things carry on like this, we might be seeing the $100 video game sooner than we'd like to. The third lever is control. This is what we've just seen happen with Sony, announcing that from 2028 onwards, they're going to seize distribution of physical discs. And this might seem completely unrelated to what's happening here, but the key thing that this move achieves for Sony is rerouting a lot of the money in the gaming market that wasn't previously going to them.
It also makes it worse because they could dictate when you upgrade. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like if Apple was to say after a certain amount of years you can't download any more apps to your iPhone anymore. They could do that, and they do that, I think. Well, they say you can't update your iPhone anymore. It's basically like that. They're gonna do that to you to force you to upgrade into the next gen, and you won't be able to just go get disc and then plug them in and just have fun without dealing with these gluttons. But hey,
back to them, because it means that you can't sell your games anymore. When games are digital, they are tied to your account, effectively shutting down the entire secondhand market. It means that if your friend wants to play the same game you're playing, you can't just lend it to them. They can't just pop over to eBay and grab it for $20. They have to make an entirely new, maybe $80, maybe $100 purchase direct to Sony. And if that doesn't already sound like a problem, look at this. On my PlayStation right now, if I want to buy, say, Immortals of Avian, a game that, safe to say, flopped pretty hard, Sony is currently selling that for £69.99. That exact same game, I can pop onto my phone, go onto CEX, and order the physical edition for £5. It is crazy to think that this second option could just disappear. And crazier still, that this is how Sony prices games while these other options still exist. What are they going to do when there's no other option? To clarify, when Sony acts as the discs, you will still be able to buy their games at other retailers, but you'll be buying a download code that still has to go through the PlayStation Store to get you the games.
I don't know what I expected.
So Sony will control the price, more so than they ever have been able to with discs. I wouldn't go as far as to say that Sony axed the disc because of AI. But I do think that Sony axing discs is a sign of a squeezed, desperate industry, and that squeeze is largely brought on by this AI boom. And even if these discs don't officially die till 2028, it feels like the beginning of the end is now, with GTA 6, maybe the biggest game launch in history. But the only physical thing about the physical edition is a download code, at which point they might as well just be digital only. And
Yeah, that's diabolical. If GTA 6 really released like that and they made us wait a long time, a lot of people hit the bucket and croaked before GTA 6 came out and they did not get the chance to play it. Fallen soldiers, man. People done got locked up. They will not get the chance to play GTA 6. And you telling me we done made it this far and I can't even crack the seal on it and pop it into the console myself. I gotta download it and I gotta deal with y'all. That's crazy. And if I want to wait 2 years to get GTA 6, I gotta get it at the same marked up price that y'all got it at. Okay.
Nintendo, too, because their game cartridges rely on the same type of flash memory that's rocketing up in price, publishers on Switch 2 are increasingly shipping dataless game keycards, like Elden Ring. It's a cartridge in a box that doesn't actually have the game on the cartridge, just a key that downloads it. So when you put it in, you're the one who has to download it, and you're the one using up your internal storage instead of theirs. And the fourth lever that these companies can use to recoup their costs, the darkest one I'm getting to. But for the time being, can you see how it's already getting more expensive and just worse to be a console gamer? This is even leading to some insiders claiming that while Sony originally planned to launch PS6 in 2027, that it has now been delayed to 2028 or later. And whichever way this turns,
It's coming out in 2029. It's gonna come out in 2029. I'm more than sure. There's no way they're dropping the PS6 in 2000 and next year. The chips are so high right now. The economy's so fickle. The inflation stuff, the tariff stuff, all of that crap. I don't see it. And then the games they're mid. They're gonna use this GTA 6 stuff. They're gonna milk GTA 6 for a couple years. They're gonna make they're not gonna make more than three Sony exclusive games in this time period from now to 2029 that are actually worth playing either. It's just a guess of mine. And they're gonna continue to make a lot of money because the price of these systems will continue to go up. People will still buy PlayStation Pros. People will still go buy brand new PlayStation 5s like the aftermarket doesn't exist. And they probably will take away physical copies. And they're just gonna rack up even more money. Shit.
there is absolutely no doubt that we're about to see slower progress in games becoming next generation. And there's even a supposedly claiming that the next gen consoles will ship with less RAM than originally planned and a lower speed bandwidth, as if there weren't already enough reasons to be concerned about them. I was originally wondering, one upside of AI is that maybe you don't need that new hardware. We've already seen with Nvidia's DLSS 5 tech that AI has the ability to massively upscale the resolution of games, make them run smoother, and even improve the lighting in real time. But alas, most of this tech can only run on new compatible AI hardware, which the current gen consoles are just not. Unfortunately, it's not just gaming companies and gaming consumers who are losing out in this spiral, because the final lever that brands like Sony and Xbox are going to have to pull is cost cutting. Like I mentioned, Xbox has actually divested 5 big game studios, including the people behind massively popular titles like Hellblade and Psychonauts, and in the process also axed around 3,200 jobs. This is one company's one set of layoffs, and still it means 3,200 potentially talented level designers, graphic.
And with the whole Xbox cutting people, that's kind of it screams way more because it's like the saying with like the more affluent people in the country, once they start screaming, it's actually a problem. But think about it, fool, because Xbox got way more money than Sony, bro. They could afford to do things like that and just like play around. But if Sony gets to the point where they're cutting people and stuff like that, that's like they're basically pressing the fire alarm. Sony runs off of PlayStation and Spider-Man. Okay? Like how DC runs off of Batman movies, or Fox Studios, whoever owns Batman, right? It's the same difference. When things get hard and you want to keep the lights on, just go make a Spider-Man movie or a Batman movie and things will be all right.
Designers, voiceover artists who were previously working on the next generation of games, who there's a very good chance are just not anymore. Keyword, talented. Reportedly, the layoffs even include around half of the team at id Software, the studio that basically invented the first-person shooter with Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, and more. Now, imagine if on top of everything else, the higher prices, the dirtier tactics, the reduced focus on next generation, that we also start getting fewer big-budget games too, because there's fewer people to make them. From an industry trade analysis in May 2026, a higher hardware entry price changes the shape of the next install base cohort and feeds directly into the lifetime value assumptions that justify a green light decision at the publisher level. Or, in English, publishers decide whether to make a game based on projections of how many consoles are going to exist in the future to sell it to.
I miss the days when we were a beautiful country, that we had developers and these peoples that sold these stuff. They just wanted to be creative. They just wanted to have fun and they wanted to explore their passions. That's what we're missing in the gaming sphere right now. We're missing that creative vibe that, like, when you used to play a game back in the day, like I vividly remember playing Ratchet and Clank for the first time. It feels like you're getting immersed into a whole new world. Jack and Daxter, Mortal Kombat, all of these things in the earlier days, it literally feels as if you're going into a whole new, like, universe, damn nearly. And nowadays, all fighting games are similar in a sense. All first person games are similar in a sense. All of story games are similar in a sense. We're losing something. I can't really put my finger on it because I'm not really the I'm not really the guy for all that, I guess. But this was a good one. Great video by Mr. Who's Boss. Y'all know who that is. But yeah, y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one. You know? Yeah.